Chosen one, listen closely. It is not by chance that you clicked on this video. It is not an accident that these words are reaching your ears right now. Heaven has aligned this exact moment because God Himself is speaking to you. There is a person on your heart, a face that came to your mind the instant you saw the title. And this is not imagination, not coincidence. This is a divine warning. Do not ignore it. Do not brush it aside. Because what you decide in this very season could determine the course of your destiny. I need you to lean in, with your spirit wide awake, because the message you are about to hear carries weight beyond emotion. It carries eternal purpose. God is calling you to pay attention, to see beyond the surface, to recognize that this is not just about love or struggle or disappointment. This is about your assignment, your alignment, your very future. And make no mistake, the enemy is terrified of what will happen if you endure. That is why this message has found you now. Before we go further, I want you to do something powerful. If this is resonating in your spirit, hit the like button. It may seem small, but it seals your agreement with what heaven is releasing over you. Subscribe if you have not already, so you never miss the words that God places in this space for His chosen ones. And most importantly, drop the number 99 in the comments. Why? Because 99 represents the one who almost gave up, the one the shepherd leaves everything to rescue. By writing it, you declare, I am not lost, I am found, and I will not surrender what God entrusted to me. Stay with me until the end, because what you are about to hear will shift how you see this person. And more importantly, how you see the hand of God moving in your life. The real warning begins now. Chosen one, you need to understand something that too many people ignore. God does not orchestrate meaningless encounters. When your life collided with that person, it wasn't random, it wasn't casual, it wasn't simply another chapter in your story. It was a divine appointment written before time began. Think back. Do you remember the very first moment your paths crossed? Maybe it was a conversation that felt strangely familiar, a glance that pierced deeper than words, or a sudden stirring in your spirit that whispered, "Pay attention. This is not ordinary." That moment was heaven's signature on a connection that would one day become a battlefield, not because it lacked value, but because it carried immense purpose. There are relationships that pass quickly, fading like shadows at dusk. But then there are those that linger, those that leave an unexplainable mark on your soul. This person is not just someone you stumbled across on your journey. No, this is someone tied to your mission, someone whose presence in your life is meant to shape you, challenge you, and propel you closer to the destiny God designed for you. That's why the bond feels so different, so weighty, so unshakable, even when trials try to tear it apart. Because it was never built on human intention, but on divine instruction. Let's be clear, this is not about romantic ideals or fantasy. This is about purpose. God does not connect His chosen ones to people without reason. Sometimes the person in front of you carries keys to doors you cannot open alone. Sometimes they are a mirror, exposing parts of your soul you never wanted to face but must confront in order to grow. Sometimes they are the one assigned to walk beside you when storms rage, so that the promise inside you is not aborted in loneliness. Every detail has meaning. Every conversation, every challenge, every reconciliation has been weaving a tapestry far greater than your emotions. And here's the mystery. The enemy sees the design, even when you don't. He knows the danger of two souls aligned under heaven's command. He knows what happens when purpose collides with unity. That's why the attacks intensify, why confusion sneaks in, why doubts whisper louder at night. The harder the enemy fights, the clearer the proof becomes. Because he does not waste his energy on meaningless connections. He only fights what threatens his kingdom. Chosen one, remember this truth and engrave it in your heart. When God writes a story, the enemy fights it harder. That's why you feel resistance. That's why you've questioned, why does this hurt so much if it's from God? It hurts because it matters. It's heavy because it's holy. If the connection had no eternal weight, it would have dissolved easily, quietly, without a fight. But the fact that you are still here, still tied to this person in spirit, still unable to let go despite every storm, that is evidence of divine purpose. Do you see it now? That first encounter was not just the beginning of a relationship. It was the spark of an assignment. Heaven placed something within this bond that neither of you fully understands yet. And the enemy will do everything possible to destroy it before you realize what it truly is. That is why you must hold on, not blindly, not passively, but with discernment, with prayer, with an unwavering faith that what God designs cannot be undone by chaos. Feel this deeply. You are standing on sacred ground. The connection was never a mistake. It was heaven's plan. And the moment you finally grasp that, everything about the battle you're facing will make sense. And now, let me leave you with this question to burn in your heart until the next moment we continue. If God Himself went through the trouble of weaving your path with this person's path, would you dare treat it as ordinary? Or will you begin to see it as the battlefield it truly is? The one the enemy fears you will win? Chosen one, you must open your eyes to the real battle you are standing in right now. This is not about arguments, misunderstandings, or moments of silence. This is not about personality clashes or the wounds that resurface from time to time. What you are experiencing is far deeper, far darker, and far more calculated than what the natural eye can see. The word says clearly, "We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, and rulers of darkness." That means the tension you feel, the discouragement that weighs heavy on your chest, the sudden thought of just give up. None of it originates from the person in front of you. It is the enemy, strategically planting seeds of defeat, hoping you will surrender a covenant you have barely begun to understand. The enemy's method is always subtle. He does not show up waving a banner of destruction. Instead, he whispers. He magnifies small problems until they look like impossible mountains. He takes one disagreement and stretches it into a narrative that says, "See, this will never work." He brings back old wounds and disguises them as present truths, making you believe that history is doomed to repeat itself. His strategy is not brute force. It is erosion. He doesn't need to destroy you in one blow. He only needs to wear down your faith, inch by inch, until you willingly let go of what God joined together. And here lies the danger. If you surrender now, you are not just walking away from a person. You are walking away from a divine mission. This connection is not only about companionship. It is about kingdom purpose. There are battles you were never meant to fight alone. There are callings you were never meant to carry without help. Heaven aligned you with this person for a reason. And if you choose to walk away in this season, you will also walk away from the very assignment tied to your union. The enemy knows this, and that is why he is relentless. He knows that if you remain, you will see fruit that will terrify him. But if you leave, he wins without lifting another finger. Think about it. How many times have you considered giving up, only to feel a deep ache inside, as though something greater was pulling you back? That ache is your spirit recognizing that this battle is not about emotion. It is about destiny. You can feel it in your bones that the fight is bigger than the two of you. That is because the enemy is not fighting your relationship. He is fighting the ripple effect it will create if it survives. When two chosen ones stand together, unified in faith, they become a weapon against darkness. They break cycles, they heal bloodlines, they release blessings not just for themselves, but for generations to come. That is why the enemy is so desperate to break you before you even realize the power you carry together. Chosen one, ask yourself with brutal honesty, is the voice telling me to leave truly from God, or is it from the one who fears my union? Because God never speaks in fear. He never whispers hopelessness. He never leads you with despair. The shepherd's voice brings peace even in correction, direction even in confusion, clarity even in silence. If the voice you are hearing only pushes you toward quitting, then you must discern its source. The enemy will mimic logic, he will use emotion, he will disguise defeat as wisdom. But deep down, your spirit knows the difference. Do not be deceived. The storm around you is not proof that the connection is weak. It is proof that it is powerful. If it were meaningless, the enemy would leave you alone. He does not waste resources on what holds no threat. The fact that you are under siege is evidence that your connection holds weight in the spiritual realm. And if you let go now, you hand over victory not only over your relationship, but also over the assignment God entrusted to you through it. So here is where the urgency rises. You cannot afford to surrender. Not now. Not when the stakes are this high. Your perseverance is not just about love. It is about obedience to the one who brought this person into your life with divine intention. If you walk away too soon, you will never know what would have been unlocked had you remained. And if you endure, you will one day look back and realize that every battle was a setup for breakthrough. Pause for a moment and let this sink in. The tension you feel is not proof that you should give up. It is proof that you are close to something the enemy fears. The attacks are loud because the purpose is louder. And so I ask you again, let it echo in your spirit as we continue. Whose voice are you truly listening to? The God who designed your future, or the enemy who is terrified of it? Chosen one, I need you to hear this with all the force of your spirit. The very weight you are carrying right now, the conflict that feels unbearable, the silence that echoes like abandonment, and the pain that makes you question if it's even worth it. All of these are not proof of failure. They are proof of purpose. Before every divine breakthrough, the battles intensify. This is not just your struggle. This is a pattern woven throughout all of Scripture. Think of Joseph, a young man who carried dreams given directly by God, dreams of influence, of leadership, of elevation. But before those dreams could manifest, Joseph was betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and locked in prison. Years passed in chains, and it must have looked like the vision God gave him was a cruel joke. But what Joseph didn't see in the dungeon was that the prison was the final stage before the palace. Every day of testing was preparing him to carry the authority he was destined for. The trial wasn't proof that God abandoned him. It was proof that his purpose was too powerful to be birthed without resistance. Or look at David, anointed as king while still a shepherd boy. The oil of destiny dripped down his head, and yet, instead of a throne, he found himself running for his life. Hunted by Saul, hiding in caves, living like a fugitive. Imagine the torment, knowing God had chosen him for greatness, yet being forced to live in shadows. But those caves were not wasted. Those caves were the training ground where David learned to worship in darkness, to lead men in battle, and to depend on God in ways a palace could never teach him. The hiding was not punishment, it was preparation. And then, Job. A man righteous before God, yet stripped of everything, family, wealth, health, dignity. His friends mocked him, his wife told him to curse God and die. And in the ashes of his suffering, Job asked the same questions you may be asking now. Why me? Why this? Why does it feel like heaven is silent when I need it most? But the end of Job's story reveals the truth. God restored him, doubled his blessings, and used his testimony as a pillar of faith for generations to come. Job's suffering was not meaningless. It was proof that his faith was stronger than the fire. Do you see the pattern? Joseph's prison, David's cave, Job's ashes. They were all stages of crushing before glory. And now, look at your own life. The conflict in your connection, the silence that makes you doubt, the pain that tempts you to quit. These are not accidents. These are the fires that refine, the storms that confirm you are carrying something the enemy desperately wants to destroy. The enemy does not waste his weapons on what has no future. He only targets what terrifies him. And the fact that your trials have been this intense, This relentless is the evidence you have been seeking all along. Chosen one, you are not in this storm because God forgot you. You are in this storm because God has chosen you, and the resistance is the loudest confirmation that the promise is near. It is always darkest before the dawn. The fiercest attacks happen when the enemy senses he's running out of time. And right now, the pressure you feel is not the end. It is the sign that heaven's delivery is closer than ever. So let me ask you this, and let it burn inside you until the next word. If Joseph had quit in prison, if David had surrendered in the cave, if Job had cursed God in his ashes, would their destinies have been fulfilled? No. And the same is true for you. The trial you are in is not the final chapter. It is the final test before the breakthrough. And here is the secret the enemy doesn't want you to see. The trial is not destroying you. It is proving you. It is proving your love, proving your faith, proving your endurance. And when the smoke clears, you will not only survive, you will rise with evidence that your purpose was always worth the fight. So I leave you with this. When the trial burns hottest, when the silence screams the loudest, when the pain cuts the deepest, dare to believe that you are standing on the very threshold of glory. Because if the battle is this fierce, then what waits on the other side must be greater than you can imagine. Chosen one, there is a danger greater than the storm outside you. It is the danger of quitting too early. Too many promises have been buried, not because God failed, but because his people gave up before heaven's timing unfolded. And right now, you are standing at that same crossroad. The temptation to walk away feels heavy, almost logical, almost reasonable. But let me tell you this with fire in my voice. If you surrender too soon, you risk aborting the very promise God has been preparing in secret for you. Think of a seed planted deep in the soil. When you cover it with earth, it disappears from your sight. Days pass, weeks pass. The ground looks the same, silent, still, unchanged. And in that silence, doubt whispers, nothing is happening. Maybe the seed is dead. Maybe this soil is barren. But beneath the surface, unseen by your eyes, roots are forming, life is stirring. The unseen is working harder than the seen. If you dig up the seed too soon because you can't see progress, you kill the very miracle that was moments away from breaking through. This is what happens when you let frustration lead you to abandon what God is still working on. Just because you don't see change in that person yet, just because you don't hear the words you've been longing to hear, just because the situation feels stuck, it doesn't mean heaven is silent. God is the master gardener. He works in hidden places first. He strengthens the roots before he allows the fruit. And if you leave now, you will never see what was about to rise out of the soil of your perseverance. Hear me. Progress in the kingdom is rarely obvious at first. It often hides in disguise. Silence does not mean absence. Delay does not mean denial. And confusion does not mean God has abandoned the plan. You may be standing in the waiting room of your miracle, but impatience is whispering that the door is locked. No, the door is not locked. It is simply not yet opened. And if you give up now, you may walk away one breath, one prayer, one sunrise before the breakthrough. Let this line echo in your soul. One day after you quit could have been the day of your miracle. One more sunrise. One more night of prayer. One more step of faith. That could be the very moment God chooses to shift everything. The enemy knows this, which is why his greatest weapon is not always destruction. It is discouragement. If he can convince you to quit early, he never needs to fight you again. He wins without lifting a hand. Think about the times in your past when you almost gave up, when you thought it was over, and then suddenly something shifted. How many times did light break through the darkness just when you decided to hold on a little longer? Those memories are not coincidences. They are proof that God rewards endurance. They are reminders that the harvest always comes, but only for those who refuse to dig up the seed. And so I warn you now, do not walk away from what God is still building. The silence you hear is not emptiness, it is construction. The waiting you endure is not punishment, it is preparation. The pain you feel is not proof of failure, it is proof that something is alive beneath the surface, pressing upward, getting ready to break through. And the enemy is terrified of that breakthrough. That is why quitting seems easier than ever right now. But you were not chosen to quit. You were chosen to endure. You were chosen to outlast the storm, to wait through the silence, to hold steady until the ground splits open and fruit is revealed. Do not let impatience write the end of a story God has not finished. Do not trade a lifetime of promise for a moment of relief. And here is the question that must pierce you as we move forward. If tomorrow was the day of your miracle, would you really want to throw it all away tonight? Chosen one, now that you understand the weight of this connection and the reason the battle has been so intense, it's time to learn how to fight. Because this is not about standing still and hoping things will magically change. Heaven is calling you to step into active warfare, but not with human weapons. The fight for what God gave you is spiritual, and only those who choose to wield heaven's tools will see the victory. The first step is prayer, intentional, consistent, targeted prayer. Not the shallow kind, not just words spoken out of routine, but prayer that grabs hold of heaven and refuses to let go until breakthrough comes. Every day, lift up that person before God. Call their name in the secret place. Ask the Lord to cover their mind, their heart, their steps. Instead of rehearsing the problems in your head, speak blessings over them. Declare life where the enemy whispers death. Declare clarity where confusion has been sown. Declare healing where wounds have lingered. Because when you shift your focus from complaint to blessing, you partner with heaven instead of feeding the enemy's lies. Second, resist the urge to fight with your mouth. Arguments, accusations, and endless debates will never build what God has ordained. Words can be weapons, but when spoken in anger, they cut deeper than you intend. The true battle is not won by shouting across the table. It is won on your knees, with whispers of intercession that thunder in the spiritual realm. When you bend before God, you rise with authority that no argument could ever achieve. The enemy trembles not when you yell, but when you pray. Third, you must learn to trust God's timing, even in silence. Silence is not absence. Silence is strategy. Think of a general in the middle of a war. Sometimes he does not reveal his next move until the exact moment it is needed. God is the same. He may not show you everything now because he is working behind the scenes, orchestrating changes in the other person, healing wounds you cannot see, shifting circumstances you cannot control. If you demand answers too quickly, you risk stepping ahead of God's perfect design. Patience is not weakness, it is warfare. Waiting with faith is one of the most powerful weapons you have, because it declares that you trust heaven's clock more than your own. But here is the revelation that should ignite your spirit. You are not fighting alone. The battle may feel heavy, but the Lord himself is on your side. He is not watching from a distance. He is engaged in this war. He fights for you. He fights with you, and he fights ahead of you. The angels of God surround those who remain faithful. The presence of the Almighty is your shield. When you lift your voice in prayer, heaven responds. When you choose endurance instead of surrender, you align yourself with an army that darkness cannot outnumber. So ask yourself honestly, what kind of story do you want your life to tell? Do you want it to be the story of surrender? The one who walked away when the fire grew hot, who allowed discouragement to steal what heaven had given? Or do you want it to be the story of faith, the one who fought when it was hardest, who stood when it was loneliest, who believed even when nothing made sense, and because of that faith, unlocked the impossible? Chosen one, the weapons are in your hands. Every prayer you release is a strike against the enemy. Every blessing you speak is a seed for restoration. Every moment of patience is an act of defiance against the forces trying to rush you into quitting. And every declaration of trust is a shout into the heavens that says, I will not let go until I see what God has promised. And so, I leave you at the edge of a question that only you can answer. When the battle is over, when the dust settles, when the story is finally told, will yours be the testimony of defeat, or the testimony of a warrior who fought with heaven and saw the impossible bow to faith? Chosen one, hear me now. This is not the end. It is only a chapter. And the best pages of your story have not yet been written. What you feel today is not a grave. It is a doorway. What looks like silence is not God's absence. It is His preparation. What feels like the edge of collapse is, in truth, the edge of breakthrough. God honors the ones who remain faithful. He honors those who refuse to bow to discouragement, who hold on when everything around them screams, let go. Your persistence is not in vain. Every tear is a seed. Every prayer is a weapon. Every moment of endurance is storing up a harvest you cannot yet see. Restoration is coming. Healing is on its way. Purpose is unfolding even now. So I declare this over you like fire in your bones. Do not renounce this person. Do not let go. What God has joined, no power on earth, no voice of darkness, no scheme of hell can separate. Stand firm. The promise is alive. The purpose is real, and your story is not over. And now, I call you to a prophetic act of faith. Go to the comments and write these words in full authority. I will not quit. Write it as a decree. Write it as a declaration. Write it as a shout into the atmosphere. Because when you type those words, you are not just leaving a comment. You are sealing your decision in heaven itself. This is your moment. This is your stand. The future is waiting. The enemy is trembling. And your testimony is being written right now. Do not quit. Do not surrender. Do not let go. Victory is yours.